perhaps. But Jonathan Katz once said, "Scientists have found the gene for shyness. They would have found it years ago, but it was hiding behind a couple of other genes." So that's comedian Jonathan Katz, in case you couldn't tell. As you've noticed over the last few days, several people have been helping us update our new club website. And now, this week, for the first time, we have an agenda created using the new website's agenda creator. And it is a full agenda, but before we get into it, James Hicks has a brief announcement. Welcome, James.
Welcome, everyone. I want to take this time to complete and fulfill my duties as being the chair for our first contest. At this point, I would like Nathaniel, and I'll let Philip accept on behalf of Wanda, to accept the actual awards for winning our humorous speech and our table topics competition.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. This completes I know we sometimes run out of order on some things, but I wanted to make a special moment to acknowledge them for the achievement of winning the contest for the table topics and also the humorous speech contest. Thank you.
Thank you, James. We decided, starting with today's agenda and the new agenda creator, to add a regular meeting role of Toastmaster Minute to the agenda, just to have a different person every week come and take what we hope would be literally 1 minute to explain a brief educational point about Toastmasters, just to help us be better Toastmasters. And of course, we scheduled Dave Rudney to be the first one. Why wouldn't we schedule someone other than our resident Toastmasters expert? Well, you know what happens to the best laid plans of mice and men. Dave is helping with interviews today, so he is running late, and he'll probably have to slip out early at the end of the meeting. So we may or may not get his Toastmaster Minute in before the end of the meeting. But I am also the grammarian of the day. The grammarian's job is to present the word of the day and to listen for notable good and bad uses of the English language and report on those at the end of the meeting. Today's word of the day is tenacious. Tenacious. It means holding fast. The example sentence is, "The dog had a tenacious hold on the child's arm." So you are encouraged, and now you will be reminded to use the word tenacious or tenacity, any variation of that in today's meeting. Our Toastmaster of the day is our club's first ever president and table topics champion. So I will yield the rest of the meeting to him. Please help me welcome Nathaniel Noble, today's Toastmaster.
As Philip said, I'll be the Toastmaster for the day, kind of filling in. I didn't set a theme because everybody had their speeches and chosen their words already for the day, so to come with a theme behind all that would seem a little out of place. To think you would set the theme before all that stuff is chosen. So I'll go right into the aha counter, or the eye counter introduction, and Mr. Hurd isn't here today, so I guess I'll fill in for that role as well. The eye counter basically is the one who keeps up with the ums and ahs during your speech, kind of filler words that we use to kind of regain our thoughts sometimes. And I'll ding you when we catch those. We'll go from that right into, well, our Toastmaster minute. We'll have to come back to that a little later when Dave gets here. So I'll go right into speaker one for the day, Miss Betty Watts. I asked her to say a few things about herself and sent it to me, and this is what she said. Although having worked in government for 30 years, she's been with the Department of Health for the last 16 years. She has been the keeper of the flame in injury prevention and has happily participated while injury prevention has evolved from the few federally funded projects into an established branch within ADH. Her immediate plans for the future include filing for retirement at the end of the month on her birthday. Oh, she's given herself the gift of more time. It is of note that she has just renewed her HealthMasters membership and plans to continue with us on her pathway, which is wonderful to hear. And the title of her speech this morning will be, this is her icebreaker speech, her initial speech, The Importance of Timing, From Push Girl to Power Woman. I already like that title. Miss Betty Watts.
Test it. Okay, I'm on. Okay. Thank you, HealthMaster Noble. You may have noticed that although I have served in various Toastmaster roles, I am somewhat of a late bloomer in giving my icebreaker speech. My timing has been terrible, but timing, whether good or bad, has always been a major part of my life. For example, the Injury Prevention Branch was legislated in 2007. The previous year's APHA conference theme was, "It's a matter of time," which alludes to that first critical hour of emergency response. So I can truthfully say, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. You may also notice that I do have a rather distinctive walk. I've used a wheelchair for the biggest part of my life as a result of infantile paralysis or polio. Although my entire body was affected, the damage to my neuromusculoskeletal system was scattered throughout my body. So I was able to use a pushchair, or to use the jargon, and the challenge was figuring out how to manage my chair and my body to live just like everybody else. Okay, I can hear it now. What about being immunized? Y'all are public health experts. Well, I contracted polio before the vaccine became available. I am definitely dated. When I was 20 months old, I was treated for a sore throat before my total paralysis appeared. Being born in Helena, I was taken to the emergency department and immediately admitted to the isolation hospital in Memphis. During this acute phase, I was placed in an iron lung and my parents were told I would not live. You might notice I didn't achieve that prognosis. But even though I didn't die, my life now revolved around gaining lost function. Fortunately, I had some of the best doctors in the world to help me. I was treated briefly at Warm Springs, Georgia, by the very same doctors who cared for President Franklin Roosevelt. After that, my life consisted of lots of visits to the doctor, the physical therapist, and the brace makers. But I still went to church and school and went to camp and did most of the things the other kids did. One summer, I even toured the southwestern states with our church youth choir, the Evangelizos. So what does timing have to do with all this? It was on July 4th that I contracted polio. That was the same month that a group of subjects had first received test vaccination. When I found this out as a young girl, I really thought about it. Even at that tender age, I was not unaware of the irony of the date. I began looking at my life as somewhat different and liberated from the boundaries of convention. In fact, I thought of that particular 4th of July as my own individual liberation. This newfound freedom both exhilarated and frightened me. Oh, but it really scared my parents. This was particularly true as I grew up and graduated high school. They knew I had a very serious side, but they also knew how hard-headed and determined and tenacious I could be. Even though I had been brought up with the highest of moral standards and was enrolled at Ouachita Baptist University, did I mention it was the late 1960s and student unrest and empowerment were everywhere? For some of us, the passage of the Civil Rights Act, landing the first man on the moon, the UC Berkeley protest, and the Woodstock love experience hadn't happened somewhere else. It had happened right there in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. We organized and participated in nonviolent protests, sit-ins, moratoriums, and any other venue of peaceful protest available. It was a time of changing social mores, testing limits, and finding one's own path. It was like an extended 4th of July for me. For the next 3 years, I was a crusader with a cause. I studied little and went to class as seldom as possible, although still managed to get enough classes passed to squeak by and keep my grandmother-funded tuition, usually. When I didn't make the grades, I managed to intercept the mail. I would drive home before the weekend mail, keep my family in the dark about my less than stellar academic achievement. When it all started to catch up with me, I was home for Thanksgiving. I knew semester exams were coming up, but instead of studying, I went to visit a friend in the country. When returning home that night, late and speeding, I totaled my groovy 8-cylinder, sweet, metallic green 1967 Mustang. My tires caught in the loose gravel. I hit a culvert, flipped my vehicle, and waited upside down in a ditch for almost 2 hours before I was rescued. Fortunately, my injuries were not really all that serious. But I took this as an opportunity to drop out of school rather than take an extension on my classes. The protest scene had become rather confusing, and I was suffering from a broken heart. Besides, I still had buddies in my hometown. With these friends, I committed numerous youthful indiscretions, the details of which I will spare you, although I do refer to this particular period of my life as the dark years. But despite my willfulness, I finally did leave home and eventually became gainfully employed as a clerk typist in the base procurement office at Little Rock Air Force Base. I found a roommate in the Air Force with whom to share expenses, and I was all set. It was there that timing had an extremely positive effect in my life. When I met the man who was to become my soulmate and with whom I would eventually share my life, both of us were supposed to be somewhere else. I had planned to be spending the weekend with my sister in Memphis, but she had to cancel at the last minute. When my roommate found out, she invited me to go to the Airmen's Club with her. When we arrived, I ran into a coworker who was with a fellow air dink. He was a cook. His name was Mark, and his temporary duty orders had also been delayed that night. Predictably, we decided to share a table. Although Mark and I did a lot of talking, he also danced with my roommate and kept us both entertained. The next morning, at the unbelievably early hour of 9 a.m. for a Saturday, the doorbell rang. Throwing on a dirty robe, not even combing my hair, I rushed to the door. It was Mark. He apologized for the lateness of his request, but would I please go to the movies with him that night? I was so startled, I slammed the door in his face. Then he knocked, loudly. I opened the door this time, and I said yes. The rest is history, but we still fondly reminisce about our chance meeting 35 years ago. Well, after Mark and I were married, I decided to go back to school and finish my degree. I was employed at VA hospital, working full-time, and taking classes was difficult. But since Mark was now a civilian cook and worked full-time and went to college full-time, it just seemed part of the deal. The only exception was that I was only to take one class a semester. My degree was a long time coming. But I did eventually finish my undergraduate degree in social gerontology at the age of 35 years of age. I even found a job in a small nonprofit organization that was more in line with my career objectives. It was then that I realized I needed a master's degree to better achieve my personal goals. However, since I was in my mid-30s, I didn't feel like I could go to school and work full-time again. The following is another example of how timing emerged as a critical element in determining my path. Only 2 weeks into my new job, my sister and her husband were visiting us in North Little Rock. That night, we decided to go out to dinner at our favorite restaurant. We had a great time talking and catching up, but as we were leaving, I was so busy talking that I didn't see the pothole at the base of the ramp. It caught my front tire. My pushchair turned over me. Now, talk about the consequences of distracted driving. This totally unexpected occurrence resulted in a broken hip, an extended hospital stay, and me losing my job. It was a long, hot summer spent in more brace work, more physical therapy, and the most uncertainty I can ever recall. I really needed to reinstate a paycheck and diligently search the classified ads. I had no idea what my next move was to be, but during my recovery, I did some volunteer work with the state and to get back in the saddle a bit. I might even pick up a few references. It was then that I saw the advertisement to achieve a master's degree in education. Work at UALR and get paid. What a deal! But the catch came when I found out the degree was in special education. I didn't want it. First of all, how could that relate to social gerontology? It did. And oh gosh, if I had a degree in special education, someone might think I had a disability. That was the very thing I'd been trying to conceal. I sought spiritual guidance, cried, prayed, struggled, probably screamed, and begged for another way. I also did some critical self-examination. This was my conclusion. When a door slams, a window usually opens if you're willing to take a different route. Well, different routes had always been my strong suit. I reluctantly accepted the challenge and had one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. As my master's degree was tracked for supported employment administration, I learned business administration and grant writing, and I had the chance to focus on ability, not disability. I learned to emphasize and enhance people's skills instead of their deficits. It also helped me recognize my own abilities and where they were best be suited. After I finished my degree, I worked at Arkansas Rehabilitation Service for 6 years in the independent living movement. Through this, I had the opportunity to meet people from around the world, work with folks in the Washington Beltway, and travel extensively. I was selected as liaison to the World Institute on Disability and even attended an invitation-only White House celebration to passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. My timing was superb. By the time I joined the health department, due to the late effects of polio or post-polio sequela, I had recently graduated from being a push girl to a power woman, and my muscles were getting very weak and deconditioned. Not long afterwards, a few of my new colleagues and I were having lunch discussing our New Year's resolution. Although I'm not sure I really meant it, I said I planned to find a swimming pool with a wheelchair lift to get some exercise. I just didn't know where to look. They told me there was one right across the street that had a lift for a wheelchair. Once again, my timing was excellent. I've been swimming and working out ever since. I came to the health department and found health.
Thank you, Betty. One of the things I enjoy about this group is transparency, and there's nothing like to bring you together as family than to be transparent with each other, and I thank Betty for her transparency this morning. I'm going to take a slight detour. I'm going to bring David up for a minute to give us our Toastmasters minute. I know he has to get back to what he's doing over in his office.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you for that applause. Wanda, thank you for your applause. What is that? Honor guests. We have some guests here today. Thank you. The Toastmaster Minute is a new, this is the first time we're doing it. Yeah. Yep. Time is of the essence. You ever been to a meeting that's gone long? I remember I was in the about a year ago, and it met from sitting in the back named Jane. Rushed out as soon as the meeting was over. She ran out, and I ran into Jane about a week later. One word, long. She joined another club. She didn't join. Got an event probably at 1 o'clock, or you got an I learned is time is of the essence. Of the essence. So I'll just say that if we're running a little bit long in our meeting and that you're an evaluator, maybe cut out the grammarian. Maybe out you're a full evaluator. Cut back if you need to. So Toastmaster is responsible for leading the meeting and responsible for the time. It's really all of our responsibilities to make sure that the meeting.
Thank you, Dave. Our next speaker will be Joyce Biddle. She's a mother of 3, grandmother of 4, currently working on her PhD. She is a senior epidemiologist for the Diabetes Prevention and Control Program. Her speech is entitled Holiday Drama. Joyce Biddle.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good morning. As y'all recall from my first speech, I shouldn't have said y'all, should I? You all will recall from the first speech, I am a drama queen. Today I'm going to speak to you on one of the aspects of that position, planning a holiday production. Before taking on a project of this magnitude, you must first sit down and decide, what is the big picture? You must ask yourself, what is it going to take? Who is it going to involve? What do you need to do first? And lastly, when do I need to get started? First, you need to coordinate with the staff. And in my case, it'd be my church. And the first thing I did was to get approval from my pastor. I first did him a proposal of what I wanted to do, how we was going to do it, and the date that we wanted to do it on. So that next brings me to my next thing, schedule the tentative date. When you schedule the tentative date, you got to get with all the other members of staff at the church to make sure that date works. You also need to decide who is going to set up and clean up on the day of the production. Who's going to set up your equipment? Who's going to take the equipment down? In my case, all this required tenacity. The next thing you need to do is choose your skit or your play and the music that's going to go with it. First, you need to choose an appropriate skit. And then, as I told y'all before, I write mine. I usually go and look at what other people have out there, but usually they don't follow what I want to do. So, in my case, right now, I'm in the midst of writing it. I suppose they've had it done Saturday, but you know, today is Monday and it still hasn't finished. But anyway, we're going to move on. But when you select a skit, if you're not someone that actually write your own, you need to go out. There are many avenues. You can go out on the internet now and just say Christmas skits, and it'll bring up all of these skits. You can either buy them or you can find some for free. But when you look at them, you got to make sure they are appropriate for your audience and they are appropriate for the people that you want to perform this play. In my case, it's young people. And at our church, our youth group is called Generation Life. You know what LIFE stands for? Lonely Youth of Faith and Excellence. When I first heard that, I went, say what? But anyway, it works. The next thing you got to do after you've chosen your play, you got to decide what music you're going to have, if you're going to have music in the play, and if you're going to have music, what kind of music you're going to have in the play, which songs you want to use at what point, and that kind of thing. The way I do is, once I write the play, but while I'm writing the play, of course, I have listened to a lot of music. And I decided, okay, that song goes good right here. Let me put that there. Let me put that right there. But the other thing I consider is, even though you decided on that, the other groups you got to work with, they've got to agree with you. The next thing you need to do is coordinate your rehearsals and the technical aspects of putting this production on. First is the auditions and the rehearsal dates. The things you got to consider is the skit in the play, the choirs involved, and in our case, our praise dancers and our Christian steppers. The last thing I wanted to consider is the little babies. You know, they usually can't do all the other stuff everybody else can. So in my case, I write something that's very simple that they can do within the play so that they can still feel involved as well. Because what we are planning to do when we do our production on December 19th is we're going to include every youth in our church, if possible. The next thing you need to consider is volunteers to do your production. First is your stage crew. And I don't know if y'all realize this, but there's a lot goes on in the background when you do a production. You need people to do costumes. You need people to handle the props. You need people to do the makeup for your people. And you also need somebody to design the stage, as well as working with your media ministry. And as you know, media ministry are the ones that do the lights, the sound, the recording, and all of that stuff. If you don't get with them, it can make your play flop. The next step is advertisement. You got to do advertisement in-house. You got to do advertisement out in the community. And out in the community includes media outlets, posters, etc. The next other thing you have to consider is who's going to type up your programs. You can type them up and then have the secretary print them, or you can have the secretary create them and she prints them and all that. The other thing to consider is when you're doing a production, you might want to have artwork around the stage. You're going to have your decorations. Somebody got to be able to do that for you. And then on the day of the production, you want to have ushers and greeters so that everybody feels welcome when they come in. Detailed production planning includes coordination with staff, choosing the right play and music, coordinate rehearsal and technical aspects. When the night of the performance arrives, you can relax, encourage your participants, and enjoy the creativity and talent of your young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. I don't want to ding her too much because I know that throws her off. Next, we'll have Toney Bailey. He is fairly new to public health, coming from a career in business, but he's passionate about what he does in tobacco prevention and cessation. He's our third and final speaker for the day, and his speech is entitled 40 Days to Freedom. Toney Bailey.
I want to thank Miss Betty and Joyce for putting all the pressure on me for doing such a wonderful job. I don't know if I could be as energetic as they were, but we'll give it a try. So 40 Days to Freedom. Research and medical science have proven that there is a connection between healing and spirituality. Most of us already know that, right? So it's not a myth. More than 200 studies over 30 years support the fact that persons who rely on their faith in God are healthier, recover faster, and actually live longer. Again, not a surprise. Dr. Harold Keening of Duke University says that faith can put physical illness beneath us where it belongs, return dominion to us, and give us the power to live victorious and fulfilling lives. Now, for thousands of years, believers have embraced a theology based on scriptures like 2 Corinthians 5 and 7. Who can tell me what that is? But we walk by faith, not by sight. How about Hebrews 11 and 1? Faith is a substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. How about Hebrews 11 and 6? Without faith, it is impossible to please God. Thank you. So these declarations are firmly rooted in confidence in the Almighty, all-sufficient God whose track record is well documented throughout Scripture. But until recently, spirituality was rarely considered in disease prevention or the healing process. Faith was a forgotten factor that was relegated by healthcare providers to the chaplain's office. When it comes to faith, go talk to the chaplain. But Americans have long recognized the healing power of faith and prayer. According to a study called Standards for Life, 82% of Americans believe in the healing power of faith. 64% think doctors should pray with their patients who request it. 63% of the patients want their doctors to discuss matters of faith. And believe it or not, 99% of the physicians say religious beliefs can make a positive contribution towards the healing process. I found that somewhat surprising. So the church is a strong force in most communities. It provides a holistic view of health, the belief that health has three dimensions: the spirit, the mind, and physical well-being. It offers spiritual and social support. It encourages meditation, which promotes a relaxation response. So for those of us who are in prayer, we know that once you're in prayer, you tend to relax. Your heart rate calms down. Your respiration seems to calm down. That's that relaxation response. The church is an overall healing and recovery station. Again, it provides fellowship, worship, prayer, meditation, and instruction. I'll check my time, make sure I don't go too far over. Now, participating in church helps people feel more connected to their community. It actually helps them to actually get more involved in the community and actually increase their network of friends. Churches are more likely to be referral sources, sponsor health ministries, health programs, and even health services. And we know a lot of churches have prayer service or weekly Bible study meetings. So what about 40 Days to Freedom? Where does that come in? Well, 40 Days to Freedom actually looks at the scripture to provide that healing process. I'll give you a few of the significant moments that uses 40 days within the Bible. So for 40 days, Noah and his family was in the ark as it rained for the very first time. For 40 days, Noah was on Mount Sinai where he received the law. For 40 days, the spies went to Canaan. For 40 days, Jonah and Nineveh. For 40 days, Jesus fasted before being tempted of the devil. And finally, for 40 days, Jesus was seen of his disciples after the resurrection. 40 days is very significant. Now, the 40 Days of Freedom is a 6-week, 6-lesson tobacco cessation course that uses the strength of the church and the individual's faith to support the whole entire quit process. Now, each participant are educated about tobacco use, guided through a spiritual journey towards a tobacco-free lifestyle. The program is conducted by a facilitator, which can be a minister, could be the pastor, could be a layperson, could be one of you. They use a how-to guide each week that carries a theme to educate, motivate, and support the individuals, again, through the whole entire part of the program. Each individual receives their own, what we call a daily devotional that serves as a companion piece, a daily reminder, a daily comforter, and a source of daily inspiration. The course includes sections such as the power of prayer, benefits of quitting tobacco cessation testimonials, journal writing, and identifying and building social support networks. The 4 Days of Freedom program is a collaboration between the Arkansas Department of Health, Tobacco Prevention and Cessation Program, and the University of Arkansas Minority Initiative Subrecipient Grant Office. Say that real fast if you can. Ms. Argo for short. Together we are working to help train individuals to go out and to teach this program and to help individuals prepare for this tenacious addiction that tobacco has on their lives. So 40 Days of Freedom is a tool to help you and your communities become healthier. It is a tool to use faith to overcome tobacco addiction. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Tony. We're now on to table topics. The topic master will call upon someone and they will deliver a 1 to 2 minute talk or speech on the topic that she picks. And our table topic person for today will be Dana Hill.
Thank you very much. Toastmaster, fellow health masters, and guests, we're very honored to have you here today. I'm going to talk to you just for a couple of seconds before I ask each of you to talk to me about tradition. Tenaciously hang on to those traditions this time of year. One of my favorite events is Halloween. I talk about Halloween a lot because I love Halloween. I love the orange and the browns. I tend to even wear those colors a lot during this time of the year. One reason I like Halloween so much is because of the memories that it pulls from my memory bank. I think of the children that I've raised and how I continue those traditions in their lives, even though it's a little bit different times than it was. Now I want all of you to think about when and what Halloween meant to you. I want, as I choose 3 different people to speak, tell me a little bit about your childhood, or if you really don't have really good childhood memories about something you've done with other children in this time of Halloween. First thing we want to see, costume. Dave Rudney and Philip were speaking in the hall the other day about costumes, and I blurted in something about my favorite costume, one of my favorite adult costumes, but I want to hear about your costumes. As I was a child, I had to wear something like a cheap little mask or just makeup because we didn't have very much money. And how many times did you throw that mask up, look your hair like this? A lot. I think that James Hicks needs to tell. It's yours to keep, and we expect you to wear it the rest of the time. All right, so as he walked around in his father's fatigues, I'm sure he did carry something to collect candy in. I carried anything from buckets to paper sacks, and the paper sacks, I'm talking about, you know, those grocery sacks we used to carry groceries in, and try to get it filled up to the top with candy. Today I want Philip to talk about the different containers he has used. Whatever you want to talk about that has something to do with containers and collecting candy.
This is all I ever use. Memory that I
That's yours to keep, and we expect it to be filled up and sitting on your desk as we pass by, since you are right in the hallway. Candy. Some of my favorite candies, he said, you know, they went for the good stuff. Well, the good stuff is different to different people. My favorite candies are these. You remember the Halloween whistles? Orange. You could whistle, and then after you sucked on them a while, you got to chew on them. They go, they go, go. Those were some of my favorites. Exactly what he would be willing to train. Brother or assistant.
My favorite candies? Toastmaster, my favorite candy. I'll go. Raise your hand if you like Reese's peanut butter cups. Got a pretty good poll in there. I love Reese's peanut butter cups. So those are my. What I'd be willing to trade.
And for what kind of candy?
For what kind?
Oh, when you sit there.
Oh, right.
Hands,
I would
right.
trade. Actually, there's very few things. Probably almost nothing. Maybe, okay, here's a fair trade. I have a twin brother. We used to. For Clark bars and for Butterfingers. So and Rich probably would actually go along. Rich is very acquiescent. Brother, I'm Rich's elder, but that's what I would do. I would try to.
That is all of the table topics I have today, but I do want to challenge you all. It's Halloween. It's on a Wednesday. It's coming up. enjoy the smells and the fun and the scary stuff and the candy, of course, at Halloween this year. Thank you.
Thanks to Dana, who is our topic master today. Now we'll go into our evaluation section. Our general evaluator for this meeting is James Hicks, and he will cover the 3 evaluators as well as giving our grammarian report, or point to the person to give our grammarian report today.
I bet I'll get in a lot of trouble if I come home and scare my daughters with this. But moving into the general evaluator's report, I think we've had a very lovely and wonderful meeting. The meeting did start on time. As the general evaluator, my role is to point out points of interest that stood out, points that may need to look into being enhanced or possibly even corrected a little bit. Before we move into the speech evaluators, just a few points that I wanted to make. We did start the meeting on time. Do want to make a emphasis. I know that we've had some members that are in absence at this point, but if you're not in a role, especially at the beginning of this meeting, we were still running, trying to get a few things filled, get everything set up. Go ahead and proactively take a stance and go in the closet, get the flag, get the banner, get everything set up if you're not actually actively in a speaking role. But with that said, we're going to go ahead and move into our first speech evaluation.
We do a group evaluation.
Anyone else want to make a comment on the first speech? I think you did a very, very good job, Betty, there. I believe that you did expose and open up to everybody. The only comment that I would give is the timeliness of it as well. Moving into the second speech evaluator.
Evaluate Joyce's speech, and time is of the essence. We're going to go to Joyce. John Jacob once said, Toastmasters like 50 years. Have fun, they'll have fun. But Joyce had a lot of fun. Didn't it seem like that? Laughing, right? Smiling up here, even if you're saying. I was saying, you can. I've done that. I've gone up here, I've said stupid things. If you have fun, it's subject, right? I mean, think about it. If you're trying to get advice, coaching advice from someone to help plan a church play, advertising, she knew it all. I mean, amazing. link number 1. Effectively
Thank you, David. Now let's move to our next evaluator, Barbara Williams, as she evaluates Toney. 40.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, guests, HealthMasters. 40 days to freedom. Mr. Bailey, I knew Toney, not Bailey. Mr. Bailey. Okay, I don't know what that is about, but anyway. I thought that you looked at your notes quite often, but you did make good eye contact with the audience. However, you didn't move from the podium at all. At first, I thought 40 days to freedom, you were going to retire. And I was like, no, I hope not, because I'm really getting sick of people retiring around here. And then I thought 40 days to not smoking. And then you came with the Bible. And I was like, well, okay, 40 days, what, around the wilderness or something? Okay, so that kind of just took me back. But in the end, it all came, to fruition, like, round and about. Because I didn't know anything about the program. I had no idea that there was a spiritual side to it. So that was good information. You did talk fast, and then you talk slow. But overall, it was a very good speech, and it was very informative, for me anyway. Thank you.
Well, we'll go ahead and have our AHA report.
My counter for today. That's all I have so far for the odds.
Now we'll bring up Philip to give our report for our grammarian report and our timer report.
I think
At this point, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to our Toastmaster. With one caveat, I do want to note that to everyone, I know David has stepped out. With regarding the website, I know that you all know that that's up, and hopefully most of you have already posted your pictures. Know that all of our meetings at this point are in the process of being recorded and are going to be placed hopefully soon on the website, but for the interim, you can go and search on YouTube. Just search for Health Masters, and you'll see, I believe at this point right now, we have 3 videos that are posted out there. And it's the full actual meeting. In the future, it may just be tailored down to where it's just the actual speakers. But for right now, so that everybody can gain a understanding of the roles of grammarian, general evaluator, the full meeting is out there. That way you can get in the system. All the roles.
Another wonderful meeting. I have nothing to say as my role as Toastmaster today, other than Dana Hill had 0 for Oz today.
I made sure he said that.
I had it down, I just didn't say it. But as president, I know we're running a little bit over, but I want our visitors to get a chance to stand and introduce themselves and say something if they choose. We'll start in the back and work our way forward. Yay! Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to ask that our visitors, before you leave, get a sheet with you've already signed in and everything? Thank you. Just want to thank you for coming out, and we'll send you some information or follow up if you want any more information about joining, or invite you to come back again. Since we've switched formats, we don't have our agenda for our next meeting on here, so we'll send out an email, I guess, Philip, with the roles for next time, and as usual, let the Toastmaster or somebody know if you can't fill those roles. We have our membership card, so before you leave today, make sure you get your membership card for our members. Is there anything else that we need to discuss? If not, our meeting is adjourned.